They called him a winner. They built teams around him. They trusted him with everything. Golden Boys don't disappear. They get remembered. Mike Richards didn't. Mike Richards won everything professional hockey offers. Memorial Cup, Calder Cup, World Junior Gold as captain, Olympic Gold, 2 Stanley Cups. By his mid-20s, Richards had established himself as the kind of player franchises built around. Philadelphia made him their captain at 23, and he wore the C the way the city demanded, playing through damage that would end other careers without ever asking for credit. When the Flyers traded him to Los Angeles, the Kings acquired him because they needed someone who understood that championships require sacrifice, something most players only talked about. Richards delivered it twice. Then, the league stopped calling. By January 2015, Richards was placed on waivers by the same team that had just won 2 championships with him as their foundation. Not a single team claimed him. 6 months later, his contract was terminated after an arrest at the Canadian border. He was 30 years old with 5 years and $22 million still on the deal. The player who embodied winning hockey vanished faster than almost anyone in modern NHL history. But what happened between his second Stanley Cup and his contract termination was not a sudden collapse. It was the final bill for something that had started the moment he learned what winning required. Mike Richards was not a first-round talent when the Kitchener Rangers selected him 4th overall in the 2001 OHL priority selection. The Rangers' general manager had only seen him play twice, both times on the recommendation of a friend in Kenora who insisted Richards had something scouts were missing. What they were missing wasn't skill, but a tolerance for punishment that other players instinctively avoided. Richards thrived in chaos. He leaned into contact, not away from it, and he learned early that leadership in junior hockey was not about speeches, but about showing your teammates what you were willing to endure when the game turned unforgiving. By the 2002-03 season, Richards led Kitchener in scoring with 87 points and captained the team to a Memorial Cup championship. He was 18 years old and already carrying responsibility most players don't face until their mid-20s. The following season, he was formally named captain, cementing his role as the player teammates looked to when outcomes were uncertain and margins disappeared. Scouts saw reliability where others saw limitations. At 5'11" in a league that preferred size, Richards made himself unavoidable. Size mattered less than willingness, and he had more of it than anyone else on the ice. Junior hockey rewarded players who could absorb damage without flinching, and Richards proved he could. Opponents learned quickly that targeting him didn't slow him down. It sharpened him. That pattern followed him to the NHL. By the time he reached the league, the question was not whether he would play hurt. The question was how long his body could sustain it.
Kitchener Rangers, Mike Richards.
The Philadelphia Flyers drafted Mike Richards 24th overall in 2003. He joined the AHL Phantoms immediately after Kitchener was eliminated in 2005 and helped deliver a Calder Cup championship before playing a single NHL game. When he made his debut on October 5th, 2005 against the New York Rangers, he scored on his first shot. Philadelphia had found exactly what it needed. By his 3rd season, Richards led the Flyers in scoring with 75 points and was named an alternate captain. December 13th, 2007 arrived with a statement the organization had never made before. 12 years, $69 million. The largest contract in franchise history. 9 months later, they gave him the C. At 23, he became the youngest player ever to wear it for the Flyers. Coach John Stevens made the reasoning clear. I just think Mike Richards is a player that has all the characteristics we want on our team. We want a guy out there that when we see him playing, he is representative of the identity of our hockey team. I think Mike is all of that. Richards responded the only way he knew how. The 2008-09 season ended with 30 goals, 80 points, and 7 shorthanded goals to lead the league. He finished second in Selke Trophy voting, losing to Pavel Datsyuk by 3 votes in the closest race in the awards history. The numbers proved he was one of the league's most complete two-way centers. His shoulders, however, told a different story. Both labrums were torn. He had managed the pain with anti-inflammatory medication since training camp, playing through damage that required surgery on both shoulders within 2 weeks that April. The Flyers never asked him to stop, and Richards never offered to sit. Philadelphia worshipped players who bled for the logo, and he kept bleeding until his body forced a different conversation. Game 5 of the 2010 Eastern Conference Finals showed what Mike Richards had become. He took a crushing hit along the boards, stayed on his feet, and seconds later scored a shorthanded goal that shifted the entire series. Broadcasters called it the shift. That was his peak. Not the 23 goals and 66 points from the regular season, but what he delivered when everything was on the line. The Flyers made a historic run to the Stanley Cup final that year, including a comeback from 3 games down against Boston, becoming just the 3rd team in NHL history to erase a 3-0 series deficit, with Richards captaining the turnaround. The Flyers lost to Chicago in 6 games in the finals, but Richards had proven something more valuable than a championship. He had shown he could carry a franchise through the playoffs while playing at a level most healthy players couldn't match, all while recovering from shoulder surgeries that should have kept him out longer. The problem wasn't that he played hurt. The problem was that playing hurt became the baseline. The torn labrums were no longer treated as warnings. They became proof that his threshold was higher than everyone else's. When sacrifice becomes your identity, there's no ceiling left to protect you. There's only the next game until something breaks that can't be fixed between periods. What broke first wasn't his body. It was Philadelphia's willingness to keep him. June 23, 2011. Mike Richards woke up as Philadelphia's captain and went to bed as Los Angeles property. The Flyers traded him for Wayne Simmons, Braden Shen, and a draft pick. The official reason was cap space to sign goaltender Ilya Bryzgalov. The unofficial reason showed up in rumor columns about off-ice behavior and partying, claims general manager Paul Holmgren called absurd. The damage was done anyway. Richards told reporters he was shocked. What he didn't say was that the trade took more from him than the C on his jersey. Philadelphia had given him a clear place in the lineup and an identity that fit the team and the city. Los Angeles offered championships, but it couldn't replace what he lost when that role vanished. Kings general manager Dean Lombardi bet everything on Richards delivering what Philadelphia no longer wanted. He was right. Richards won 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years, proving that he wasn't a product of one system or one coach. He was a winner. Full stop. But winning in Los Angeles required the same sacrifice that had worked in Philadelphia, except now there was no structure catching him when the cost became too high. The concussions accumulated. The Boland hit in the 2013 playoffs forced him out for 3 games and changed something permanently. His production slid from 44 points to 41, then crashed to 16. By the time the Kings fully saw that Richards was no longer the player they had traded for, the transformation was already complete. The damage was permanent. And the question nobody asked in Los Angeles was the same question Philadelphia had avoided for years. How long could a player sacrifice everything before there was nothing left worth protecting? By the 2014-15 season, Mike Richards had become a problem the Kings didn't know how to solve. His production dropped to 5 goals and 16 points in 53 games, a 25-point decline that couldn't be explained by age or usage alone. The concussions had accumulated quietly, and his role shrank without anyone saying why. January 26, 2015. The Kings placed Richards on waivers. 29 other teams had the chance to claim a 2-time Stanley Cup champion for free. Not one of them did. He was sent to the AHL Manchester Monarchs, where he posted 14 points in 16 games and proved he could still play hockey.
Knocked away, quick shot and a score by Richards. Mike Richards.
The Kings recalled him on March 22nd. In his final 6 games with Los Angeles, he recorded just 1 assist and finished -3. The production said he was done. What it didn't say was why. Dean Lombardi later admitted he had heard rumors about off-ice issues, but refused to believe them despite obvious signs. Richards had built his entire identity on absorbing damage no one else would take. When his threshold finally broke, When pain stopped being manageable and started controlling decisions he used to make instinctively, the foundation gave out. 5 months later, the truth stopped being a rumor. This is the part everyone wants explained. How does a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with 5 years and $22 million left on his contract vanish overnight? June 17, 2015. Emerson, Manitoba border crossing. 4 hours in detention. Oxycodone. No prescription. The Los Angeles Kings found out during the NHL draft. 12 days later, they terminated his contract for material breach. The NHLPA filed a grievance. A settlement was reached in October that made Richards a free agent. The charges were stayed by a Manitoba court 8 months later. The legal process resolved itself quietly. The damage was permanent. Dean Lombardi released a letter to the Los Angeles Times that devastated what remained of Richards' reputation. He admitted he had ignored warning signs and called Richards' situation a destructive spiral and the most traumatic episode of his career. Lombardi's words framed Richards as someone who had deceived the organization, and the narrative shifted overnight from champion to liability, from leader to cautionary tale. There was no tribute video, no acknowledgement of the championships he helped deliver, no conversation about what oxycodone actually treats. Chronic pain and concussion-related issues that come from playing exactly the way Richards had for over a decade. The question the league never asked was whether the pain management was the problem, or whether the pain itself was the cost of doing business the way the NHL had always demanded. Richards had absorbed punishment for 15 years, playing through injuries that should have ended seasons and delivered championships while his body deteriorated in ways that were celebrated as toughness until they required medication. When the medication became visible, the celebration stopped. Mike Richards disappeared from NHL conversations faster than any champion in modern history. The silence said everything the league refused to. Mike Richards signed with the Washington Capitals on January 6, 2016 for 1 year and $1 million. He played 39 games, recorded 2 goals and 3 assists, and averaged 12 minutes per game. When the season ended, no team called with another offer. He was 31 years old, and his NHL career was over without anyone actually saying it out loud. He never formally retired, because retirement suggests a choice, and what happened to Richards felt less like a decision and more like an ending that arrived without warning. The years that followed were spent rebuilding a life that had been entirely structured around hockey since he was a teenager. Richards moved between Kenora, Ontario, where he grew up, and West Palm Beach, Florida. He fished competitively, something he had loved before hockey consumed his life, and found peace in routines that had nothing to do with proving his value to anyone or managing pain just to function. In a 2024 interview, Richards said he was happy and had no issues with what people said about him in the past. He doesn't miss playing except during playoff time, when watching postseason hockey makes him restless for a few weeks. His Instagram bio reads, "I used to play hockey, now I just fish." That last sentence carries more weight than any championship banner. It represents something the league never prepared him for. The ability to exist without the uniform, without proving his worth through pain, without needing to be the warrior who absorbed damage so others didn't have to. Public judgment framed Richards as someone who fell apart. The private reality was different. He married Kate Shant in July 2020 and built a life that didn't require constant proof of toughness or value measured in what he could endure. The hardest part wasn't the hits, the concussions, or the contract termination. It was learning how to stop being the player everyone needed and figuring out who he was when no one needed him to be anything at all. He survived that part, the part hockey never teaches. The part that comes after the league stops calling and the identity you've built over 15 years no longer fits. Mike Richards won everything hockey offers and paid for it with his body. When the cost became visible, the celebration stopped. He rebuilt his life anyway, found peace in routines the NHL never valued, and discovered that walking away meant more than any championship the league ever gave him. Most players don't get that ending. He did. Mike Richards did not fall off. He was worn down. The league rewards sacrifice until there's nothing left, then walks away when the cost becomes uncomfortable. He survived what hockey never prepares you for: stopping. If you want stories the league stops telling when they get uncomfortable, subscribe. Skates and Scars doesn't hold back.